So a lot of times when we talk about race, I think I do that thing that I guess most of us probably do. In order to process a concept that is new to you in some way, like you make it relatable to you. So you say like, okay, that kind of reminds me of a time I felt this way, da-da-da. And 9 times out of 10, whenever you're talking about race-related things, it always finds its root in my feminism, where you're talking about, like, you know, how you kind of became just, like, woke to these, you know, disadvantages and the oppression and kind of stuff that even as a Black woman, like, you weren't aware of. And then you kind of had this, like, awakening where you're like, oh, my gosh. And I had that same thing. Like, I've always been a feminist, but there came this point where I just really, like, dug in to the literature. I was studying it and researching it, and I just found this, like, anger in me that was, like, F men, man, like F men. There's still so many ways where it's like we're just expected to tolerate, you know, people pulling their dicks out places, and that is something that men have no idea what that's like to have to deal with, you know. And when you talk to them about it, they just kind of laugh it off, or it's like, oh, boys will be boys, and you know, this lack of belief in rape culture and things like that, where it's like I feel like we're trying to explain, like, no, this is. I do not feel safe. I do not feel equal. I do not feel like I have this place in this culture, right? And so you get so angry. And I just remember being stuck maybe for a couple months. But what pulled me out of it is I've got 2 sons. And so, like, I can't stay hating men. And, you know, we've kind of talked in the past about the fact that, you know, with Black Lives Matter movement that both of us support, and there is so much good and there needs to be so much awareness, but there's this anger, and it's justified anger, like it's completely understandable anger, but if you don't push through it and try to get to that point of reconciliation, it can be dangerous.
Oh yeah, like if you don't push through it, that anger can fester, and instead of just being angry at the oppressor, you know, then you can in turn become the oppressor. And I've seen that can happen, you know, and so, I mean, it's really about, like, kind of wrestling with your own demons and figuring out how to push through it. I mean, I had to. I was on the edge of just, like, cutting everybody off and being done, just because I think we live in a culture now where this culture of social media and easy access to so much, and this is one reason why you may find lots of Black people so angry, is because there's so much that wasn't really taught to us in school, so much that we're just now becoming aware of. And it's like, it can go through somewhat of an identity crisis of sorts. I know that is exactly what I went through, an identity crisis of sorts. And so, but I'm thankful that I pushed through it, and I want to reconcile relationships. I don't, you know, I would just be like living a life full of hatred.
Right,
you know?
right. I mean, I think that I remember waking up after the election and seeing this woman tweet that, you know, basically half the nation's fine with me being raped. And my first thought was like, yeah, that's kind of how I feel. Like, we've got half the nation's okay with, you know, electing someone who has made very predatory comments towards women, and I don't feel safe. And then I let my logic kick in and say, okay, first of all, only half the nation voted, so it's really only like a quarter of the nation that's okay. Well, and then of that quarter, how many voted just because he's the political party they support, or because he, you know, was pro-life, or whatever their little pet issue was, like, he identified as that. Like, and I had to kind of talk myself out of dehumanizing this whole swath of people and saying they're all out to get me, because it's not, I mean, anger most of the time is rooted in fear. So when we are feeling angry, so often it's because we're scared of something, you know? And I think that is another place where I just see so many similarities when I hear people talk about, you know, racial injustices, is it is literally a fear for your life.
Absolutely.
And for your children's lives. Yes. And so, of course, you're going to be angry. And just in the same way that, like, I get so frustrated when a men's rights activist is like, women have all the same rights as men. What are you even trying to do? Why do you need feminism in 2018? And I'm like, go F yourself. Like, because people are still pulling their dicks out. Like, when we're in, you know, coffee shops. Like, it's just, I mean, like, this is still happening to women all the time. Like, there are still these injustices. And I had for me personally, it was acknowledging the good men in my life, that I have, 2 sons that I'm raising to be good men. Like, I have a good husband. Like, I have very good male friends. Like, I am not as unsafe as I want to feel through this, like, awakening of kind of gender oppression. But then at the same time, it also was realizing that, like, the human dignity of each individual was really important to me, to get away from just this branding everybody as a danger to me, because then you do have this whole, like, smash the patriarchy to become the patriarchy type thing. Like, it's not about equality. It becomes about revenge in a lot of ways, if you get stuck in that anger. And
one thing that got me through was I continue to be reminded that you don't know what you don't know. Now, those people that do understand systemic racism, they do understand the plight of people of color in America, that's great, and then there is the extreme that they want nothing to do with it. Well,
they don't even want to understand.
Yeah, they don't even want to understand.
That's what I would think would make you crazy, though. Those people who just, like, will throw out their one-line thing and don't even care.
Absolutely. And I, in order for me to maintain my salary, there's no room in my life for them.
Your sanity?
So, my sanity? Yeah, what did I say? My salary? I have no salary, by the way.
Who are you working for, Cessilye?
My sanity. I have to set up boundaries.
Yeah.
I have to set up boundaries. But for those people that really just don't know, and I have to understand you don't know what you don't know, and then I give them some nuggets, or I put them in contact with some allies and safety pin box, give them some resources so that they can educate themselves and be patient with them, because at one point there's a lot of me going through my identity crisis, there's a lot that I didn't know, which allows me to kind of even empathize with people. And then another thing that I try to do is make sure that when I am having conversations with people that I listen to understand, not listen to respond. I think oftentimes that what we do, we're listening to people and we're formulating our response like while we're listening, when we're not really listening. We're not really absorbing what they're saying. And so we need to slow down. We need to rehumanize. We need to listen to understand, and I think also it really depends on how we're brought up. Oftentimes, I think that plays a huge role in how we treat people, and in what direction we go politically, socially, all of that. And if you are just surrounded by the same people saying the same thing over and over again, just this echo chamber, like constantly, then it leaves you're really kind of unable to have those like diverse, conversations with people in a healthy manner. It like pretty much puts you like on the defensive immediately.
Well, because I think most people who have that type of echo chamber that they're in, like they get the main talking point, but they don't actually understand why they believe or should believe a particular way. And so as soon as you start challenging them, that's when it just becomes, typing in all caps and like crazy shouting, because they don't, I do the same thing whenever I'm wrong and I'm fighting with my husband, and which is like never happens, but both times it happens, like the second he starts challenging me when I know I'm wrong, like I just become hysterical and unhinged because like I can't defend it, right? And so I think like I see that a lot with people too, where you're trying to explain, and a lot of times they already have their like formulated opinion of what a feminist is, or what Black Lives Matter advocate is. Like they already have this idea in their head, and so as soon as you start trying to explain it to them, they're putting shit on you that you didn't earn, that maybe you don't even deserve, that it's stuff you don't even believe. And I think that also can kind of shut down a lot of dialogue, but having the real conversations with people, and that's where social media is kind of hurt us in so many ways, absolutely. Because it just allows us to shout at strangers, and then when we do actually, sit down to have coffee with a friend and like have actual dialogue, like we're so burned out that we don't end up doing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree. I think another thing too, while you're talking, just kind of flowing through my mind, is how we oftentimes get so consumed with whatever group or party or whatever that we're affiliated in that we leave no room to critique the very group or
Mm-hmm.
party or organization that we're in. And I think that's dangerous
Mm-hmm.
when we can't look at our own issues and break them down. Because all we end up doing is just looking at other people and pointing fingers and ignoring what's going on in our own backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we need to do just a better job. I guess that kind of brings up the pro-life movement. I think that's probably one reason why I criticize the pro-life movement so much. It's like, I can sit here confidently and say I'm pro-life, but I'm like, but we need to do better. You know, we need to hold each other accountable. And right now we're in a culture for generations, for so long, like the moment that you hear pro-life, people cringe, you know, or I have to be like, whoa, 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 let me explain. It's never, oh, so you're pro-life. All right, so you're really fighting for, you know, not only the rights for the unborn, but the rights of women. Like, that's what we should be known for.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not. And I think right now in this time, in the political climate, the racial climate that we're in, is a time where pro-lifers need to really step it up and really show the world what it truly means to be pro-life. Like, it has to be, because the world already has this negative opinion of who and what the pro-life movement is. This is the perfect opportunity to step up our game and say, no, that's not what we are. We do care for all people. We care for human dignity from womb to tomb.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's not divisive. If anything, that's unity. If anything, that should bring us like closer to that's where we find common ground. I mean, I truly believe those that are on the other side will begin to respect this, because at this point they really don't. And I know, because I have relationships with them.
Right.
Like,
we know how much they hate us, because they're like, they're our friends.
Yeah, exactly.
I was explaining that to someone the other day, that, you know, it's that old adage that they don't want to hear what you know, or no, they don't care what you know till they know that you care. Like, until people understand that we care about more than just abortion. Like, abortion is absolutely like where we put most of our time and talents and energy, because we do feel like that's the most urgent and crucial issue. Like, it is literally life or death for the most vulnerable human beings. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that's all we can care about. Like, we can care about, you know, immigrant children being ripped away from their parents, and, you know, we can care about even the human dignity of death row inmates, or those who are being tortured or abused, like, around the world. You know, one of the big ones we talk about is sex trafficking, and how in war-torn countries, that's something that is readily available because you've just completely dismantled systems here. And then you have vulnerable children that are preyed upon. Like, that's very much a pro-life issue, in my opinion. And so if I can find that common ground with somebody by talking about that issue, then they're much more willing to listen to me talk about abortion, because they know that I care.
Right.
So when I hear people say that, you know, they're so sick of the pro-life movement being so fractured and caring about all these other things, you know, besides just abortion. Like, pro-life anti-abortion should be just abortion. If that's what you want to do, cool. But be honest, call yourself anti-abortion.
Right.
But if you're going to wear the label of pro-life and have that title, then you need to earn it. And it needs to truly be pro-life and caring about the human dignity of all people. That's why I care about the human dignity of the unborn, because I care about the human dignity of the immigrant, of the woman, of, you know, the marginalized and the oppressed. Like, that's why it's important to me. And so, again, I don't see that as a weakness. I see that as a strength for us to be talking about these other issues.
It is. It's an absolute strength. Like, I mean, honestly, it's a game changer.